Yeah.
All right.
Here, we're doing it.
Yeah, good work. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Science the Show live stream edition. I am Alex Schiffman. With me, as always, is comedian co-host Dylan Farr and the cognitive scientist for all of us, Dr. Russell Cohen-Hopping. We have a great show for you guys, but just while we're waiting for everybody to get signed into the chat, I'm going to do a real quick rundown of who we are and what we do. So this is Science the Show. We're a comedy and science show. We used to be live, now we're live stream, and we do it because we think science is cool as all hell, and we think that a lot of instances of science communication don't necessarily break down the borders between academia and the rest of us. So we try to do something like this to make science funny, to make it fun, and to give you all the chance to talk to a scientist like a real person. We've got a really cool show for everybody, but we're going to have some fun beforehand. Dylan or Russell, do you want to run through some potential ground rules just to make sure nobody says or does anything truly atrocious?
Yeah, no, I think we say this every time, but every now and then we get new viewers. I think it's really important. No slurs. Just keep that out of the chat. It's a pretty baseline thing. Just generally, please don't feel like, please ask questions in the chat. We'll do our best to be looking at them. We've got a tech guy behind the scenes who will also feed them to us if it's necessary or if it's very relevant. Oh yeah, Jordan is our tech guy. You can't see him, but he is all powerful.
So when asking questions, we should follow my dad's example.
Oh yeah, I'll take your. I'm not sure which one is your father, but. And then one other thing, if you guys have a Twitch account, this is a new thing we've added on, there's a little poll on the screen. You can scroll over. It's Twitch picks, and there's two questions in there. Very important. One is, do you think there's life on other planets? And probably the more important one is, who is the superior host? So just feel free to answer those if you've got a Twitch account. But otherwise, I think that's some ground rules. Anything else I miss?
Am I one of the hosts in the answers?
No.
Oh, that's rude.
Rad. Russell, anything you want to add before we get started with what it is you do?
No, let's do it.
Oh, I do want to say, if you're logging on specifically for Morgan, our science guest from JPL, she will be on in due time. But we do like to start our show with, here's a way that we typically run our shows. We start with us talking. Russell will give us a little bit of demonstration. He'll explain what that is in a second. Then we'll bring on a comedy guest, and then we're going to bring Morgan on in due time. We know everybody really wants to learn about her and what she's got to say. Don't worry. She's here. You are at the right place. Okay, Russell.
Should we start?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right. So I want to start off with a question. And hoping to get a story out of you, Alex and Dylan. And that question is, so tell me about a time that you blamed an object or an animal.
Or an animal. You want to go
out? Blamed them for a thing. I mean, I blame my cat for stuff all the time. But he means to do things. My cat lies to me.
What?
My cat lies.
I know Maddie. He doesn't lie.
No, Maddie absolutely is a liar. My cat Mattress is a dirty liar, and he'll do things because he loves to be chased. It's like his favorite thing. I think it's because I have kind of a domineering personality with my cat, and he likes it when I chase him, and I don't like to chase him because he'll run under the bed and expect me to go after him, but I'm not cat sized, so I can't.
This answer took a fucking turn.
I know, this took a turn. But he'll go to the door to be let outside because I'll let him onto my balcony, and he'll cry, and I'll get up to let him out on the balcony, and then he'll run towards the bedroom so that I'll chase him again because he's lying to me. So I guess I blame him for being an asshole. Is that what you're looking for, Russ?
Well, let's hear Dylan's story first, and then we'll circle back on that.
Oh man. Okay, so I have I don't know if this counts, but so I have this stuffed animal that I've had since I was a kid, and obviously when I was a child, I used to treat it like it was a person. But as I've gotten older, I've tried to do that less. But still, like, if it is like pointed at me and I masturbate or something, it fills me with deep shame. Like deep shame, like it watched me. Does that count?
So, okay, the whole reason why I'm asking this question.
I'm blaming it. I'm blaming it for making me feel shame. Like, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
like, that is.
Yes. That definitely counts. And because the reason, what I'm trying to get at here is anthropomorphism. And so those are both things that in both your stories you guys did, where, with Alex, is it possible with anthropomorphism, right, is assigning human characteristics and beliefs and intents to things that are not human, right? So I don't know if it's possible for a cat to be an asshole, because it's clearly a human thing. And having something that's not human feel you shame, nor is capable of judging you, is definitely anthropomorphizing. So the reason why I bring this up is anthropomorphism is such a fundamental thing that we do. It's pervasive in our behaviors and things we do in our lives. And as a cognitive scientist, when I heard that we were doing a show on the search for life in the solar system, this is the first thing that came to my head, is that if anthropomorphism is so pervasive, how can we be sure that we found life when we see it? Because of we're just so readily have this bias of anthropomorphizing. And so
can I try to translate what you just said? Are you saying that humans are so good at assigning human-like qualities onto things that are neither alive or human, that like it makes looking for life or intelligence or something outside of humanity all the more difficult, because how could we know?
That was where my head went.
Okay.
That's exactly where my head went. And just to kind of, I want to go into another example on just how pervasive this is. So in this,
I will say, when you brought up anthropomorphization or anthropomorphism, I really did think you were baiting me into talking about furries, and I'm really happy that's not what this is about. But I did at least want to get that clear the air that this is not where it's headed. But sorry, you can keep going.
While we're doing this, I mean, audience, feel free to chime in too if you have extreme examples of you anthropomorphizing things that, like, there's no way they have human qualities or characteristics.
Oh yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. Let us know how you feel. Oh, Nell wants to know if you can test the cats are assholes theories. Everyone seems to be on my side that cats can be assholes, which I'm happy to know about. Okay, Russell.
So we're gonna play a little game called Shape Charades. And while I'm switching screens on, why don't we bring on our comedian, Alex? Can we do that?
Yeah, sure. So let's bring out Matt. Matt, you want to come on out?
Yeah.
Actually,
the stage.
You know what? I thought it was going to be a stream exclusively about furries, and now that I'm hearing that that's not where this is going, I'm out. I'm done.
Okay. That's bad news. Yeah, I guess as an introduction to Matt,
You'll see me later.
He's a comedian. He's a good friend of mine. We've run shows together for years, and now he's here. And he looks hilarious with that fucking headset.
I'm just so enveloped in gamer culture at this point that I just, if I'm sitting in front of the monitor, the headset's got to be on, man. Got to get that good quality comm chat to get these dubs. You know what I mean?
Jesus Christ.
I know too much.
Matt, do you have any examples of you anthropomorphizing things that aren't human?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my dog, and if people don't think I'm funny on this stream, I'll just blame him for it. I think that counts. I mean, the amount of times that I've, like, as a person of height, I often find myself hitting my head on things. So the amount of times that I've called a door frame or a chandelier a stupid, dumb asshole is pretty high. So I spend a lot of time adding human personality traits to things that decidedly do not have them.
There you go.
So let's jump into this game here. And so the way that this works is I'm going to. You see these two shapes here, and they are gonna do something like this.
Oh, are you guys seeing the shapes on the stream? I'm not seeing it right now.
You're not seeing it?
No, on the stream itself. I don't know. Oh, okay.
Okay, great.
Cool. So the shapes will be there shortly. Cool. Just making sure.
Well, ready for the shapes to come in. Dylan, you wanna spare me some of your melanin again?
Wait, my melon? Oh, yeah. Match Black. What a surprise. That's the twist for
right.
this one.
Yeah, that's the running joke between me and Dylan is that we're both half black and we could not look any more different. Are so vastly. It truly is a spectrum.
Yeah, when Dylan brought you towards the show, Russell and I were both like, "Oh, he's Jewish, like we are." And Dylan's
yep. Sure, yeah. And then when I said that I'm a person of height, you guys were probably like, I might be doubting this theory.
Okay, Russell.
So the shapes are up. Can everyone see them? Matt, can you see the shapes?
Yep.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna play these shapes, and basically, there's this. Just answer what is the big triangle doing? So there's
extremely invasive. What the fuck is this, dude?
There is a correct answer.
Is bully an answer? Because that triangle is being a real.
It was sticking its triangle in the other triangle.
Yeah.
That was awful.
Is this an alpha version of Space Invaders? I don't understand what's going on.
So, all right. The possible answers were herd, argue with, play with, bother, accompany, and circle. So you guys said bully. I don't know. Herd?
That sounds right.
Not.
Answers, if it's from that set of answers, I would totally go with bother. The little shape was extremely unhappy.
Bother.
Look at that.
Yeah, it was bothering.
Yeah, how is this not bothering?
No, you got it.
I'm bothered.
Dylan, right.
I know I'm right. And I'm still mad about it. Oh, God.
Okay, let's go again. Audience, feel free to answer, too, if you think you know it.
Yeah, there's going to be a delay, but if you can any guesses that we see in there, we'll be happy to read. And if you just really want to agree with me, I'm happy to read that out loud as well.
Or if you
Dylan needs a validation, please agree.
I do.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more, okay?
Yeah.
That was it.
I was waiting for more.
Yeah.
Can you do it again?
All right.
It looks like it's running away, but I can't tell.
I'm going to say
the
lead.
big triangle?
That looks like lead. Oh, no, the big triangle.
Oh. Wait. Do it again. I hate this. Okay, it looks like it's following, and the other person's following it.
It's definitely. I think it's flirting with it. That's the following it and like that, and using its size. It's like putting the hand on the locker in high school.
That's not how you flirt. That's not flirting. Following somebody and putting your hand on them is not.
It is when you're shaped with no other characteristics. Okay.
I like flirting, so I'm gonna go not right.
Okay, I'm gonna go with lead.
Lead.
How was that? It followed the other one.
We had stalking in there. Okay, good.
Invite me to a science show to make me look like a fool, Dylan.
Bumper car triangles. Not sure.
So yeah.
Clingy.
Why are we doing this elementary school game, Russell?
I want to go over one more. So I'm going back to my slideshow. We're going to go over one more example. But I mean, that specific example was, right, like even with just basic shapes, doing totally random, like objectively, they are just shapes moving across a screen, right? They have no intentionality. They have no... they have nothing that is even close to being human.
You're being very rude to the shapes. They're in the chat. If you think Russell's being rude to the shapes, please let us know.
Exactly my point. So It's just the fact that we can assign intentionality beliefs very easily, with no problem at all. So one last example, and this is a question for Matt. So Can you see this picture of a monkey and a dude holding this monkey?
Yeah, and I gotta say that dude for white boy got some sick on there.
Oh my God.
Can you, besides his sick hairdo, can you describe this, what's going on here?
Well, it looks like the chimpanzee. If I was to ascribe a person some type of emotion to the chimpanzee, it looks like it's happy. It looks like that they were playing, and the man holding the chimpanzee was maybe saying something nice, or maybe tickling it, depending on looking at where his hand is, and it elicited a positive response from the chimpanzee, and he looks super stoked about it.
So that is a very common response, and in fact, what's probably happening is that this chimpanzee is actually about to be launched into outer space, and this face is actually known to be a fear grimace. So it's probably that this chimpanzee is terrified right now. And this is really to just make the point that it's like looks like it's smiling, so it must be happy, like, because that's what humans do, right? That's the implication of the judgment. But in reality, right, that again is just another example of how easily and how readily we just anthropomorphize things without even thinking about it, right?
Put that picture up there to deceive me on purpose.
No, Alex and I had already answered the question, so we didn't want to, and we answered similarly. It's really deeply upsetting. I'm guessing that monkey is dead now.
Well, it was launched into space in the 60s, right?
Yeah, I don't think they had a recovery program for the
getting the monkey back.
They did have a recovery program, actually.
Oh, really?
A lot of the monkeys, some of the I'd have to go back and look at it. I'm sure somebody from JPL might know this history way more than me. So maybe somebody out there can answer that question.
I like the idea of all of the chimps that got launched into space just being stuck up there and crashing on the same planet and forming a space colony.
Guys, heads up.
That's the reality that I'm choosing to believe.
People are saying the video is lagging a lot right now on the Twitch stream. Jordan, any help on that one? All right. Well, that's fine. I just wanted
to apologize and do what we can.
All right, cool. Just wanted to let you know. So if you're gonna do any crazy act outs, it might not register. But we can kill. Obviously, we can.
I was going to do the entirety of the WAP dance, and now it's just not worth it.
It's
Russell, so why are we talking about this if we are talking about searching for life, but not necessarily like conscious life in the solar system?
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, this is. I think. One of the kind of the big debates about anthropomorphizing and the research on anthropomorphizing is about the issue of anthropomorphizing in science, and how these kinds of this bias that we have really enters into places in ways that we don't know. So it is a bias that we have, and it is. I think it's just one of the things that could be a worry about looking into life and what life could be like if it has anything to do with either, life on Earth. I mean, I guess it could be the fact that life is just not even conceivably close to what we could think about because we're just, restricted to our human biases.
Has this happened on Earth? Have scientists found something and be like, this is fucking alive? And then it turned out that it was not. It was very much not alive.
You know what? I think that's probably a good question for our scientists.
Oh yeah, for the guest. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Do you want to bring out our guest?
On that question, why don't we bring out our guest, Alex?
Yeah, sure. So, guys, we're so excited to be working with this amazing guest. This is our second time working with JPL directly. We're working with astrobiologist Morgan Cable today, and she's got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So I know we can't applaud, but if you could, give us a round of applause for Morgan Cable.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Hi, Morgan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. It's so great to be brought out to silence. It's on the internet.
I can feel the applause. I can just feel it.
Yeah.
So actually, some of the things you guys have been talking about are super fascinating, like the whole anthropomorphizing stuff. Did you know we actually tend to do that to our spacecraft a lot?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
One of the Mars rovers was named Opportunity, but we called him Oppie. The Cassini spacecraft, which I worked on for a few years, she was definitely a she. And, you grow to love these robotic things because they're the way that you extend your senses out to the places that you can't go physically yet. Maybe one day we'll be sending people to Mars, hopefully soon, but right now it's just populated by robots. And yeah, we fall in love with them, and it's really hard to say goodbye when we have to lose them at some point.
I guess on that topic then, is there something that you guys do, you guys being scientists working on these missions, to try to zero out anthropomorphizing when, say, you're looking for life signatures, or you are trying to deal with thinking about your tools and your robots without having emotions? Is that
totally
hope?
Yeah, well, so part of what we do, I would say the very basis, the foundation is motivated by the science, and so we try to approach it from as agnostic, which means like not biased of a perspective as we can. Part of that includes bringing on multiple scientists from a lot of different backgrounds. So I'm an astrobiologist, but I study chemistry. That's what I study. So I team up with people who know geology and astrophysics and biology and all sorts of things. And so we will each kind of test and poke at each other as we're designing some of these tests for life to make sure, oh, well, what if this? You forgot about that. Well, what about this? Just to make sure that we're trying to be as unbiased as we can. And it turns out that one of the best ways, I think, to look for life is actually to look for not life. And let me explain. So,
isn't most of things not life?
Because we understand that really well. In science, we call that abiotic, so A, not biotic. And we understand those systems really well, right? Like we can design experiments in the lab that don't have any microbes in them, and we can test stuff and be like, okay, well, if no life is involved, this kind of chemistry or physics should take place. And so you should see this wherever you're looking. But if life is involved, it's going to muck up with everything, right? It's going to generate weird molecules. It's going to, leave poop and do stuff that life does, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we are looking for evidence of life out in the solar system, if we go someplace and find something where one of us scratches our heads and goes, hey, that's weird, that gets us really excited. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good sense. I think before we go any further, I just want to clarify who Morgan is as a scientist. So Morgan is coming to us from the Jet Propulsion Labs, which is in California where we are. And she's working on a couple different missions with NASA right now to try to look for life out in the solar system. That's why this show is called Searching for Life in the Solar System. So she's an biologist, like she just explained. She comes from chemistry, and she looks for ways that we could try to see, is there life in the solar system that we all live in? So I just wanted to make sure that we were totally clear on that, and I didn't want to leave anybody hanging. So from that, I guess, how did you get involved in astrobiology? Because that isn't really something that I think a lot of people know about.
Yeah, like when I was in school, that wasn't a thing you could study. Apparently it's a major now, which, that's cool. But I was always fascinated by NASA and space. I grew up right next to Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Now that we're dealing with, hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, I'm thinking back to my youth when we had lots of hurricanes growing up. But we also had lots of rockets going off. Like I could just walk outside and there would be one. And so it was always something that was kind of there and that was inspiring. And so I started studying chemistry and thinking about how we could use that as a tool to look for all sorts of things and understand our universe. And then when I was I was an undergraduate, and I did a summer internship at JPL. So if any of you guys are interested, if you're students, you want to see what it's like to work for NASA, do an internship, because it totally like changed my perception, rocked my world. I was like, this is amazing. And so I worked on trying to find this really tough form of life. They're called bacterial spores. They're kind of like the less cute version of a tardigrade. You know, the water bears, those cute little things with the little legs that can survive in space.
I'm doubting the cuteness of this. Most times the scientist tells me something's cute, it looks fucking horrifying.
I think they're really cute. It's called a tardigrade. TARDI grade. Yeah.
This looks like it's from hell.
They've got like little feet, and they swim around, and they're super cute. Anyway, they can survive in space.
The Loch Ness Monster is also
I was looking for something similar to that. Yeah. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. I totally got hooked and ended up doing this for a career, and it's totally awesome, and I love it.
Right. That's easily one of the strongest endorsements for an internship I've ever heard. My internships in film have been nightmares. So it's good to hear that they're good somewhere.
Yeah, NASA has some pretty good ones.
Oh man. Do you have any questions, Matt?
I guess my first question would be, in the search for intelligent life, why are we not starting with the city of Cleveland, given that we've yet to find it?
I have been to Cleveland. It's quite lovely. I don't know.
I'm from Cincinnati. There is nothing good in Cleveland.
I'm from Pittsburgh. There's one thing that Cincinnati and Pittsburgh agree on, and that is that Cleveland is truly awful.
And that hot spaghetti chili is delicious.
Oh yeah, no, that does slap. Cleveland is so nice. LeBron left it twice. That's the way I like to put it.
Oh God.
Morgan, somebody actually asked us a question which kind of takes us into something that I wanted to make sure we talked about, because it does sort of parallel what Russell was talking about. It's Russell's dad who asked the question. But Russell is talking about anthropomorphism and how like we tend to look for human-like qualities in maybe intelligent life. And someone in our audience brought up, like, how will you know what to look for if, for instance, in our own oceans, there are life forms that breathe methane and don't breathe oxygen. So we would have to be looking for things totally outside of our own sphere of knowledge.
Yeah, there are plenty of scientists that study weird life here on Earth. Like you were talking about, there are methanotrophs, which use methane. There are methanogens, which make it. So they poop methane out. And there are all sorts of weird and wild organisms that live on our planet. Some of them live at the base of the ocean, near what we call hydrothermal vents. Have you guys seen these like images of these tube worms that like they're like filter feed? Did you know they can live to be 250 years old?
I did not.
I just learned that. It's like
That
nuts. Do you imagine?
Yeah,
but these
disgusting.
communities, they're cool, right? Because they're living basically cut
well.
off from sunlight. At least I think.
Farms.
And so when we're searching, sorry, I missed that.
No, I was trying to be agreeable. Yes, they are very.
I'm again looking up what this is. This one is, but it is cool. You did not say it was cute, so it's okay. Also everyone in the chat agreed with you, so
there are these Arctic sharks that can live to be like 300 years old too. There's things slow down when you're in the ocean and stuff gets cold. But the reason
I bring quarantine, I've lived for 300 years at this point.
It does kind of feel that way, huh? Yeah. I've seriously been looking forward to this for a while. Like this but yeah, so we search for these like we study the creatures here as a data point for like looking for stuff out there. For example, there are some of these moons around Jupiter and Saturn that have liquid water oceans underneath a shell of ice. And so what we try to think of what kind of organisms could live in that ocean. You know, it's probably not a whale or a squid, or it'd be cool if it was, but chances are it's going to be something a bit smaller and that can live off of just a little bit of energy, because most of the energy in these environments is not sunlight. You've got this like big crust of ice on top, right? So sunlight can't get through to the ocean. So instead, we look at these communities like these tube worms that live at the sea floor. that don't need sunlight, and those kind of communities that live off of geothermal energy or chemical energy. And so we're trying really hard not to like only look for Earth life, but we can use some examples as like things that we could start to look for. And so what scientists will do then is they'll take this and be like, okay, well, if it lived in this ocean, would it eat something different? If it did, what will we look for? Will we look for, methane or other gases or something like that? And so that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
So Morgan, I think to kind of, because the question, I think, and I am still trying to wrap my head around is like, is how do you know what life is when you see it? And I guess, what's interesting, and when we've been talking to you, is that you come at it from a very specific angle, which is a chemistry angle, right? So what does that mean then to like, versus a biological angle where I guess you can look at things that are similar to things, biological systems on Earth, but like, yeah, how do you approach this differently as a chemist versus somebody else?
Well, I think ultimately we have to use all of these tools, right? And so typically what we call my field is planetary science. And the reason that we call it that is because it's really general, right? We include chemistry, we include biology and physics, all of these tools in our toolbox when we look for these things. And so some biosignatures, some molecules that I might look for example, they're still informed by biology, and I hang out with my microbiology friends to make sure, what I'm doing is not crazy. We'll look for things like the bits of cells that cells use some basic building blocks that we find all over in the solar system that are not originally made from life. Things like amino acids. So these are in all of the cells in your body and in every known life form. And we also find them in meteorites and in places where there is no life. And so they're formed from abiotic, so non-life processes, and they're just found all over. And it turns out that life here on Earth just happened to use those building blocks because they were around to assemble things like proteins that then allows us to be alive. And so we're assuming then if we go to another place in the solar system, that life would probably use the same building blocks that were available. Now, it might not put them together in exactly the same way. It may use some different ones too. But those are the kinds of things we can look for. And then we can look for patterns in those that are different from if they were just made abiotically like we see in meteorites. Does that make sense?
That does. Can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
Sure. Outside of like, say, maybe just a geocentric perspective of, well, that's how it happened on Earth, so that's probably how it would happen on, Titan or Europa or somewhere in the Andromeda galaxy. Is there like a physics or chemistry reason why these building blocks are probably the building blocks we would find in other types of life?
Yes. A part of it has to do with the fact that I love when Carl Sagan used to say that we're all made of star stuff. Like, that's real, right? All of the elements in your body except hydrogen are made in either the fusion nuclei of stars that then exploded, or in like these if you have these two neutron stars and they're spinning around and they spin really fast and then they smash into each other, you have a neutron star merger. That forms all the heavy elements like bigger than iron, I think. So
my favorite addendum to the we are made of star stuff is like, yeah, we're made of star murder. Like the stars have to die.
Yes, and then they exploded and like
right.
that everywhere. So we're made of that stuff, right? And so if you look at in the universe, the elements of chemistry that are most common, they're the things that are in us: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, those kind of things. They're the most abundant around. And it just so happens that we're made of that stuff. And so chances are, if we're going to look for alien life somewhere, maybe the Andromeda galaxy, for some weird reason, would have like extra, neodymium or some weird element. Well, then maybe life could use that and we could start to study that. But so far, what we're finding is that those few key elements I mentioned, those tend to be the things that life uses. And there are other chemical reasons why life uses those. They tend to form covalent bonds, so bonds between elements, between atoms, pretty easily. And not only can you form them, you can also break them. They're not permanent, which is important, because if you want to move energy around, the best way to do that is chemical bonds.
Okay, question that's definitely going to a little bit of a different direction. Do you get annoyed by like sci-fi films that have aliens and stuff in it? Because I just like I've been watching a bunch of the Alien franchise, and I'm like, xenomorphs are cool, but they're parasitic, and I'm like, I don't get how this is a thing, and that this is just stupid. But like, does that kind of like media like bug you? Is it just exciting? Like, how do you feel about it? Like, I hate watching shows about comedy. I'm like, this makes me want to die. But
yeah, sometimes it does, because especially if something like totally violates a fundamental law of physics where it's like really obvious and you're like, no way, like that can't, if they try to say like, okay, well, they're going faster than the speed of light because they're in a wormhole or something, then I'm like, cool, okay, got it. I'll suspend disbelief for a while. But when they do something that's a little bit less believable and it's like they're not even trying, like I will consult on things, like what a lot of us scientists, we love to talk about what we do, just ask us and we'll be like, oh yeah, totally. This is the way that could happen. And then the science is right and your plot could still happen. Actually, that's how The Martian came to be.
That's how what came to be?
The Martian, that movie and that book.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the author, Andy Weir, I think what he did was he like posted each chapter onto some website, and then he let his like science and engineering friends kind of comment on it. And so I think there are very, very few things, at least from a scientist perspective, that are like wrong with that book, that movie. So that was really cool. But that's just one example. I mean, I love how imaginative the film industry is, and comic books and video games and all these things where they come up with these wild and crazy creatures that are just, we couldn't possibly imagine them. It really helps us as scientists shape like, oh yeah, that could totally exist, that maybe not a xenomorph. I don't know about the whole parasite thing, like there's not a whole lot of life out there to suck on your face and but I think it's neat, and we can't dismiss any of it, right? The best life detection technique would be able to say for all of those that those are alive. And so that's what I'm striving to do with my lots of other people at NASA.
What you're saying is that Tatooine might be real.
Actually, there are more Tatooines out there than Earths. Did you know that most like star systems are binary star systems? They're like way more.
What's that? What's a binary star system? Oh, like there's two stars.
Two suns.
All right,
suns.
got it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start pod racing soon, dude.
Dude, seriously?
Yeah, work on your tan though, because sunburn.
Fucking got him.
No, I'm well equipped with the SPF 50. I know what my skin looks like.
Oh my god.
Me too.
Fuck, I had it.
Russ,
yeah, so is life, like, are there certain planetary systems or environments that are, and then this is a lead into maybe the missions, but like, are there certain conditions that are like more likely to hold life, that you would want to look at?
Totally. And one of the mantras that NASA's had is follow the water, because at least based on our experience, all known life needs water. Now, it may not need water. It could use some other liquid, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that's a good rule, at least for looking for stuff in our solar system. And so that's why a lot of the Mars missions have been searching for, places where Mars was once warm and wet, or may still have some water. That's the reason why we're currently working on a mission called Europa Clipper, which is going to go to Jupiter's moon, Europa. And this is one of those worlds, like I was mentioning, that has a crust of ice, and you can see it's got a bunch of like cracks and stuff in it too. And underneath that icy surface is more liquid water than all of Earth's oceans combined.
I have some pictures.
Wait. More than all of Earth's oceans? I thought that Europa wasn't that big, but it's
about the size of Earth's moon, but it turns out most of the water on Earth is just at the, pretty much just at the surface in these oceans. But Europa has a pretty decent size, thick layer of liquid water underneath that icy crust. So it's about 2 to 3 times the volume of all of Earth's oceans combined.
Dude, forget a water bed. I want a water planet.
Oh, I know, right? You could just stretch out. It'd be awesome. Maybe grab a sample, look for life. Be like, that's cool. Collect your Nobel Prize. It'd be great.
Oh, wait, I might have missed with Europa. You said it's underneath. This isn't the ice thing. That was like Jupiter, right?
So I have.
Yeah.
Oh, this okay. Just making sure.
I have some pictures up, so I'm not exactly sure if this is it. So
No, this is it. You're right. I would have told you. If you go to the next one, I think this is a picture of the mission that we're working on called Clipper. And what this is going to do is it's got a whole bunch of instruments. It's going to be able to look at what the surface is made of. It's got basically this fancy thing called a mass spectrometer that essentially is like sticking your tongue out of a window of a car that's driving really fast and catching some snowflakes at, faster than a speeding bullet. But it turns out that's great because if there's any stuff being sputtered off the surface by like micrometeoroid impacts, we'll be able to collect it and capture a bit of the surface of Europa and test it for all sorts of things. And so we're really excited about this mission, and it's going to launch in a few years and get to the Jovian system. That's where Jupiter is a few years later. Space is big, and we're super stoked because it's going to do all sorts of fun measurements.
Wait, what's the... Oh.
Go ahead, Dylan.
What's the end game? Like, what happened? You find life, and like, what? Everyone just like kind of goes home, or like, let's pack it in, guys. We did it. We found it. Shut down NASA. Like,
no, please don't shut down NASA. There will be certainly a lot of celebration. I think it would change for a lot of us how we view sort of our own world and our place in the universe, right? Because if we're the only game in town, honestly, I think that's terribly lonely. And it would be so neat, even if in our own cosmic backyard, we find one other place that has life. This would just be so cool. And of course, we wouldn't stop there. Like if this mission finds life, well, now we have to go back and figure out what kind of life is it? What does it eat? If it's microbial, that's cool. Maybe we can study it. What if it's intelligent enough to talk to us? I mean, the chances are small, but they're not non-zero. So all of these things we would want to know and understand. And Europa is one type of what we call an ocean world. So it's got this icy crust and ocean underneath. But there are many others in our solar system, places like Enceladus. Even Titan has a liquid water ocean too, underneath all the cool stuff on the surface. So I'd want to go to those places too and be like, okay, well now is Europa unique, or do other worlds also host life of their own? So I think this is a cool time to be alive. Like this is what we call civilization level science. These are the discoveries that like, if you can do this, well, for the rest of human history, we will go down as the generation that for the first time found life somewhere else. And that's really
that'd be rad. It would be really nice to be remembered as a generation that did something like that, and not that was always depressed.
And not have done any of the
just
work.
Sweep 2020 under the rug and think about the good things.
It's extreme positivity. I do enjoy it.
That's one thing I love.
What it would do? Here's a good question for just everybody. Would we trade everything that's happening right now for intelligent life?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd sign me up. I'm down.
But one thing
I need to talk about that for a while.
Yeah. One thing we haven't talked about yet is weird life. And so I mentioned that NASA is currently following this follow the water thing, but there's another world in our solar system that is different. And I'm talking about Titan. This is Saturn's moon. It's Saturn's largest moon. And keep going until you get to the sort of goldish, orangish looking ball. There it is. So this is what Titan looks like to the naked eye. And it looks super smooth, right? Like there's nothing, can you see anything on there? You can't, right? This is sort of like, imagine the haze of LA, because we're all in California, Los Angeles. Imagine that, but over the entire planet. That's what this is. It's not formed by people, at least we haven't found any yet. It's formed from photochemistry in the atmosphere, but it creates this really thick and dense haze layer. And then if you click next, I think we've got a picture of, yes, this is the only time so far that we've landed on the surface of Titan. And this was actually a collaboration with the European Space Agency. This is from a probe called the Huygens probe. And it took a picture of the surface. And you see those rocks? Those are not rocks. They're either made of water ice or organics that could kill you. Things like acetylene or HCN, hydrogen cyanide, something like that. This is a really weird world, and it gets even weirder. Go to the next one. This is what the North Pole looks like.
Sorry. Those are, you say those are poison rocks, essentially?
We think. We're not sure what they're made of yet. So that's something that Dragonfly is going to help us solve, which I'll talk about in a minute.
Okay.
So this is what the North Pole looks like. So those are lakes and seas. We falsely colored them blue. They're not actually blue. If you go to the next one, this is probably more what they look like.
Their names are so much cooler than ours.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're really cold, actually. They're minus 183 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's really freaking cold. It's like liquid nitrogen. And get this, when I give talks to kids, I love to say this, they're made out of liquid farts. Methane. So these are
right.
Right?
So if we met life from Titan, we wouldn't want to hang out with it.
Actually, methane doesn't really have a smell. Did you know that? The smell that you smell is it's usually something that we that has a sulfur in it to help us be able to detect. Our nose is really sensitive to sulfur compounds, so like skunk smell, stuff like that. It's a chemical compound called a thiol, and we add that to methane gas to make sure we can smell it before it gets to dangerous levels where it could blow up.
So while we're on Titan, I've had people we had Droma DHG ask anything about Ganymede, AM Kondo ask what about Enceladus, and I don't want to derail us from this, but I think I want to use their questions of like, what about you did talk about Enceladus briefly, like what about this moon or that moon, to ask like why specifically Titan and why Europa? Why are these the ones that you guys at NASA are looking at first?
So we actually want to go to all of these places, and Enceladus also is near and dear to my heart. And we've worked on a couple mission concepts that we proposed to NASA, and it hasn't been picked yet. And part of that is just because NASA can't afford to fund all of these missions. You know, our budget is I think 0.5% of the whole government spending. It's a really tiny amount, and we do incredible stuff with it. And so part of the reason why we picked missions to go to these places now is because we had the right technology, and part of it is because NASA decided, you know what, this is the right time. You should go there. And NASA picked this really cool mission. Click to the next one. I'm so excited. This is Dragonfly. And that's us. That's me and my friend Sarah, who's also a scientist that works on Titan. We're holding real life-size versions of the helicopter blades. So if you go to the next one, that should give you an idea of how big this thing is. This is about the size of those big Mars rovers, right? The size of a car.
So Dragonfly is it's a probe you're sending to space, but it's a helicopter?
Yes. So Titan's atmosphere is thicker than Earth's atmosphere. It's about 1.5 times thicker. So it's like if you were to hold your breath, please hold your breath if you're going to do this. Go to the bottom of your swimming pool, like the deep end, and just chill out. Like that's about the pressure. Yeah. But come back up. Like swim, please. If you can't swim, don't try this at home.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna take instruction to kill themselves on a side stream.
Because the atmosphere is thicker. This is really cool. The atmosphere is thicker and the gravity is less. It's about the same as our Earth's moon. So that means if you were standing on the surface of Titan and you had little wings and you flapped them, you could fly. So it's really easy. And it turns out that this is more efficient to do these flying hops, which is what Dragonfly is going to do, than driving like a traditional rover would. And so it just happens to be that this place is the perfect way to test this stuff out. And because of all this drone quadcopter technology for automated flying, this was a perfect time to do this because we've got all that advancement that we can use to help Dragonfly fly by itself. Because Titan is so far away, it's not like you could sit there with your little joystick and fly it around. The one-way light time, I think, is 45 minutes. So you'd have to send a signal, wait 45, it gets there, and then it sends a signal back. So you'd be sitting an hour and a half, being like, is it okay? Is everything good?
We struggle with a 5-second delay running this show. Right? 45 minutes is just it's over. We don't know.
If my ping is over a millisecond when I'm playing video games, I'm raging.
It's so frustrating, right? On Mars, it's 4 minutes, 4 to 20, depending on where Earth and Mars are around the sun. But it's still, so we've worked a lot on that kind of technology to make sure this thing can fly by itself. And I'm super excited. So it's going to go to all these different places on Titan's surface and tell us what those rocks are really made of. And, given that this world is so wild and weird, it's got a different liquid, there could be, in theory, some different form of weird life that doesn't need water to survive, but could live in liquid methane. And, this would be the first step in starting to understand that weird world. So I'm super excited.
I have 2 questions. One, probably more important than the other. How do you guys name the robots? Is it, and then, I have the indication that it is Dragonfly-like. like, which is what it's. I'm like, oh yeah, no, like flies is a buzz.
It's more like a grasshopper, though.
Well, okay, it doesn't. Yeah, either way. And then the second question was actually from someone in the chat. They were actually talking about is there any points to ever go back to the moon? Essentially, like you go in all these.
I will answer that one next. But
okay.
yeah, so when we name stuff, there's either like two rules we kind of follow. One is like we come up with a really cool acronym. Like Juno is an acronym. I'm trying to think of some other cool examples, like MSL, which we ended up renaming it. So, and Messenger, that's it's a mission that went to Mercury, and it's MESSENGER. The whole thing, I forget what it stands for, but it's like Mercury Exploration, something. So you can do that, or you can just come up with a cool name, like Cassini, Europa Clipper. All of those are just, they don't stand for anything. They're just a cool name, or maybe they're named after a famous astronomer like Cassini was. But for this one, this is kind of neat. So this is not powered by solar panels. It's powered by what we call an RTG. It's a radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Basically, it's a hot power supply that we turn into electricity. And so if you were to look at this thing like with night goggles or IR goggles, it's but. That's where it is. It's but with glow. And so if you
okay, wait, you couldn't hear what you said. Wait, what did you say? You just did a gesture, and I was like, all right, well.
It's butt glows in the infrared. So we originally called it Firefly for that, but then there's a whole amazing Firefly franchise they got sound in space right. I love them for that. Anyway, but yeah, so we ended up changing it to Dragonfly because it's got 4 sets of these helicopter blades, and dragonflies have 4 wings. So that's
right. That's a very.
Can I ask maybe a question that? This is less about the science and more about you, Morgan. But I know you're a hopeful person. I don't think I've spoken to many scientists other than climate scientists who aren't hopeful.
No, I haven't been around this much hope in like months.
We should hang out more. I know there's more where this came from.
The hope is injected right into my veins. But are you hopeful? I don't want to ask you to say yes or no, because I feel like professionally that's not great. But are you hopeful that you might get some really interesting stuff back from either Dragonfly or Europa Clipper, like that this could be civilization level interesting? Or are you like, we have to keep doing this because that's the point and I'm not expecting anything?
Well, I think when it comes to these missions, just like getting there and landing and surviving is like, yes, we have won the lottery, right? I mean, it's really hard. And, JPL and a lot of the other NASA centers that build these missions, they understand that risk. And as scientists, like I was saying before, when we anthropomorphize our spacecraft, we totally fall in love with them, right? But you got to try to keep your heart, be like, it's going to be okay. You can do it. And I think we apply the same thing to the science, right? That, of course, we have dreams for these big and amazing things, but we try to keep our expectations manageable. But I will say, every single mission we've sent out there, we have learned something new that we did not expect. And I'm sure these missions will open up our eyes to things we had no idea were there, or, ways that these moons formed, or the possibilities. We're going to find something new and incredible, and hopefully it'll inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers to design something even crazier that can go to places that we haven't gone yet and find even more cool stuff.
And just following up on that, so you're one of how many scientists and engineers who are working on this Dragonfly project?
So it's a huge team. Just the science team alone is, I think we're 30 or 40, but that's just the people that are actively working. We sort of roll on and roll off scientists throughout the mission, and there are thousands of engineers that are working on building this concept. Everything from, testing the helicopter blades in weird drag conditions at extreme temperatures to making sure that antenna, which is on top, the one that sort of looks like a circle with the Mickey Mouse ear, making sure that can, automatically point towards Earth and talk to us. There's so many different parts of this spacecraft and this mission that have to work just right. And I think we have the right team to do it. Now, someone had asked about the moon. Do we want to talk about that?
Let's do the moon first, and then my question isn't quite as relevant. But yeah, so they were basically asking, is it relevant to still keep going to the moon?
It totally is. So so far we've only landed in the moon in 5 places, right? 6 if you count the Chang'e rover that China launched and landed on the other side. There's so few places. If you had gone to just like 6 places in the world of Earth, could you say that you understood Earth? Like,
depends on where I landed. If it was Cleveland, then no.
now with
there are places like there are these shadowed regions in a lot of the craters, especially near the poles. We call them PSR, permanently shadowed regions. And we have a lot of evidence that there may be water ice and some other interesting stuff there. So we want to go and look for that. We could use it to understand like where liquid water or frozen water may exist, even places this close to the sun, which is cool. We need to send people there again, right? I mean, that is a really important goal of NASA. If you go to the moon, it's 3 days. If you go to Mars, it's 6 to 9 months, right? If something goes wrong, you can't just jump in your rocket and head home right away. And so we really want to make sure we understand how to put a sustainable community, base, a colony somewhere. We want to do that on the moon first before we do it on Mars to make sure that we work out all the kinks.
I guess, my other question. I can't remember. Matt, Alex, Russell, you guys have something? I've been highly, I was highly engaged and just getting really excited. And then
I'm sorry, I just derailed your train of thought. We could talk about Enceladus if you wanted.
I do want to talk about Enceladus. I have a question, but Matt, do you have a question? Because we haven't heard from you in a bit.
I'm just taking all of this in. Honestly, I'm having PTSD flashbacks to chemistry class in high school where I got a solid B-.
That's not bad.
Passing grade.
I was like, I like history more. I can't think of anything. My question was that I had in my head for a little bit was similar about the moon. But I guess, if this is like confidential information, but you mentioned the objective of building a base somewhere in space. Is that something that is like you got feet on the ground with, or is that just like an up and down the road?
Can we go?
We are actively working on all the stuff that you need to build a sustainable colony on the moon or Mars. And in fact, one of the bits of payload that the Percy, the rover, is carrying on its way to Mars now is something that'll help us figure out how we can use stuff that's already at Mars to make things we need. It's called ISRU, in situ resource utilization, because it's really expensive to launch stuff. Like things are heavy, water is heavy. So if there are things that we can extract out of the environment, like oxygen or water that's already there that we can just use, it's way better.
Gotcha. So then my follow-up question is, where can we submit resumes to be part of the first space colony?
Get me out.
I think as a comic, I would be able to provide some good comedic relief. I mean, that 6 to 9 month journey is a long time, and I could, I
could totally hang out. I have some chemistry jokes. I could try them out on you. It would be great.
If you bomb,
you want to hear a joke about sodium? Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's the sodium joke? Why not?
No, it's just, do you want to hear a joke about sodium? And then I say nah, because it's Na.
Right, there you go.
Can we cut off her feed, her video feed? How do we get that out?
Ellen, could you imagine bombing on the trip to Mars and just having
he's being like, I'll see myself out
for a whole year?
Oh gosh.
I mean, conceivably, some of the astronaut class of the next, few generations, next few calls could be the first boots on the moon and the first boots on Mars. That is in the pipeline as far as I know. So
well, this is unrelated. I mean, but have you guys heard of the country of Asgardia? So it's like this, I don't know, it's like a Kickstarter or something, but it's like this group of people that are trying to launch a satellite into space and then create a country in space. And I'm a citizen of Asgardia.
Cool. That's awesome.
They're trying to approach the UN to be recognized as a country. Anyways.
Well, I think at some point become a non-single planet civilization, right? What is it Neil deGrasse Tyson said? Every time a meteor comes screaming really close to Earth, that's the universe's way of saying, how's that space program coming along? And we just had one come by. So, I mean, we monitor the big ones that could potentially destroy all life on Earth. There's actually like a group of people that at NASA, it's their job to like watch out for those.
It's very stressful.
Yeah. Well, would you want to know? I guess I would want to know.
I would. Oh, that's like the whole premise of Melancholia. We don't have to talk about that, but like the planet that's gonna hit our planet and everyone's gonna die. It's about depression. It's very sad.
Wow.
Anyways,
I actually have a question for Morgan that sort of ties into that, and that's like, okay, life is rough, maybe in general, definitely right now. I'm not the only person on this stream or watching this stream who gets what I'm saying. Things are tough for our country, things are tough for the world. What gets you up in the morning to do something that does not have any immediate feedback, right? Because even once you get Clipper or once you get Dragonfly out on the mission,
you have to wait 45 minutes.
Just to hear it.
Oh yeah, it's a real question. And usually, back when we used to travel and I'd like sit next to someone on the airplane or whatever, and we talk about these sort of things, they'd be like, yeah, well, I don't know what NASA does for us. And usually at that point, I bring out my cell phone and be like, yeah, the camera that's in like every single cell phone, that was invented at JPL. You're welcome. We designed that. Like, no,
wait, so
seriously.
You're to blame for TikTok?
Yeah, and influencers. This is, again, cut the feed.
Yeah, but it's like we call them spin-off technologies, and there's lots of these. Like, the Brita water filters, those like activated charcoal things, those were invented for the space station by NASA. Like a lot of the things we use every day. And so, yeah, it's true that some of the things that we study may not always have direct applications to our everyday life, but think about like all of those kids who decide to study science or engineering because they want to be an astronaut, and now they are solving a lot of the world's problems. And, we have a lot of problems now, but I'm confident that the scientists and engineers, my friends and colleagues and people who do this stuff and are in the trenches every day, like we're the ones who are going to come up with these creative solutions to hopefully pull us out of it. Right. And so that and, the potential for finding life for the first time in human history, those two things get me out of bed in the morning. And yeah, sometimes I still, get to wear my pajama pants, but that's just, comfort.
What gets me out of bed in the morning is the urge to pee. So yours is much more impressive than mine.
Stay hydrated, it's important.
Oh, Jesus.
So we're approaching time right now. Right now, audience who can hear me, let's get a couple more audience questions. Dylan, Russell, Matt,
actually,
is there anything? Oh, go ahead.
The poll. We had eight responses to the poll that I started at the beginning. 8. So 6 people think that there's life on other planets, and 2 people say maybe. So no no's out of those 8, which is, I guess, not surprising if they're coming to a science show.
But that's cool. I think that's statistically significant in that, it was further away from 50% than I expected, which is cool.
And then the second poll, which maybe isn't more important, is who is the superior host? Between the answers Dylan, Dylan, it was unanimously Dylan. So just some great news.
You got him, buddy.
I'm not sure. I think we need to do a resampling.
I don't like that at all. That was only 8 answers, but I think we're settled on that one.
Bit of bias in that poll there.
Matt, do you have any questions we didn't get to touch on?
Closing thoughts.
Yeah. Do you guys have a stage setup of the moon landing just to like mess with people when they come in? Just to be like, hey, this is where we faked the moon landing.
No, but we do have a Mars yard. So we've got it's at JPL. It's this big like sandbox with a whole bunch of rocks and stuff, and we test the Mars rovers on there, which is kind of cool.
Mars Yard is going to be the name of my ska punk band that I'm starting.
Nice. I like it. Okay. If you make T-shirts, give me a T-shirt.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, everyone at JPL's got the hookup.
Yes. Okay. That's like 6,000 T-shirts. You realize what you just signed up for, right? Okay, just checking.
Hey, I'll get my merch. My merch guy's he knows his stuff. He knows his.
Okay. All right. That sounds good.
Fast worker.
Yeah.
Russ, Alex, you guys anything? Oh,
Russell?
Russell, there's
I guess the maybe a question is like, do you do you have like a secret hope of what life will look like? Like, will it just be, I don't know, a bacteria, or to be something more intelligent? Like, do you have any either strong guesses and or a unrealistic hopes?
The 1963 New York Jets.
My biggest hope is that we'll go to Europa, maybe land on Europa one day, and some like giant noodly appendage will reach out of a crack and like wave at us, and be like, hey, there was that, what was it, the Space Odyssey 2001 said that like we could go everywhere except Europa. Do you remember that? Like all these worlds are yours but one. That's like a really hardcore science geek reference. But we actually had oh God, I'm spacing on his name. Someone's going to yell at me in the chat for this. The author, the guy who came up with that, he actually came on to one of our telecons and like gave us permission to land on Europa, which is really cool.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, but honestly, I'll be happy if we find anything weird, especially if it's something that we didn't predict. Like that's the most fun part about being a scientist, is like I'll go into the lab and I'll plan on doing an experiment and I'll start it, and my best day is when I see something I don't expect and then I have to figure out why. Like that's the coolest part. And I think with life that'll be the same thing. Hopefully we'll find something as wild as crazy as some of what the sci-fi films show.
And in that vein of things, so have there ever been like near misses where like you guys, like people got excited about things like that they think this might be it, and then they're like, dang it.
Okay, have you guys heard about that Martian meteorite? This was back, I think it was like 10 years ago now. They found it in Antarctica. It's called ALH 84001, but that's not really important. And so they sliced it open and they looked inside and they found this thing that looked like a worm. It looked just like a real, but the problem was it was like super, super small. It was about 1/1000th the width of a human hair. And there are still some scientists to this day that still say that is life, that we found life in a Martian meteorite. The problem is, though, there are some abiotic, like non-life explanations for how that could form. And most of us think it's a mineral deposit that fooled us, that tricked us. And so those kind of things do happen. And, like I said, there's still some scientists who will defend to like their death that is actually life. But I think that's our biggest hurdle, is convincing the science community and also convincing the public, like all of you, that we found it. Because you've kind of been spoiled with sci-fi now. I feel like if I were to come and bring you like some data, if I were to be like, yeah, see this graph, look, that says there's life, you guys would be like, nah, pics, or it didn't happen, right? So now we gotta think about like, could we take an image, like bring a microscope with us and look for a little cell swimming around that could be like, oh, that kind of thing. And so we're doing our best, and we've got a lot of really cool technology in the pipeline that could actually do that, which is really amazing.
That's awesome. I think because we are about to come to an end, and you've said some very beautiful, profound things about science and exploration, I think I want to end real quick with, I know this isn't the business you're in, but do you have advice for anybody, as a very hopeful person yourself, for any of us? What's your life advice, your day-to-day getting out of bed advice for?
Don't do stand-up.
Yeah.
Don't do stand-up.
Hydrate. No, I mean, definitely that. But I think for me, it's like, don't hold grudges. I don't tend to dwell on the negative stuff. I always look for, okay, what's coming next? And I set little goals for myself, and I try to reward myself when I do those things. And, I'm not like this all the time, right? I have good days and bad days too, but just being able to like talk to people, even if it's through the internet, who are like not my husband. I love my husband, but he's the only person I've been like, I'm loving this, because I'm an outgoing kind of, I'm not an introverted person. So this is just really great for me. So yeah, make sure that you reach out to people, especially if you're feeling down. Talk to your friends. Your real friends will talk back to you and make sure you're okay. And I think we really, this uncertain time is reminding me how much I rely on my family and friends, and have that reinforcement of that support. We all need that. So don't hesitate if you're feeling down. Reach out to somebody.
That's great. That's great advice. I think, we do need to wrap this up. And that's it. I had a point to make, and then it left my brain again.
And on that note,
unfortunately, Matt's got to split. He's got a hard.
Yeah, I have to split,
second.
but this was absolutely delightful. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. And Morgan, it's been great talking with you, and thank you for tolerating me having absolutely no grasp whatsoever on how any of this works. I feel slightly smarter now, but also much more confused.
Dude, we should hang out more. I still have some other chemistry jokes to share with you.
Happy to hear them.
Take care and stay safe, all right?
Yeah, good seeing you, Matt.
You as well. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. For us, we've been Science the Show. But actually, Morgan, where can people find you on the internet or and your work or anything like that? If people are interested, or if they're just interested in astrobiology, where should they go?
So if you just do a simple Google search for NASA astrobiology, you'll find a lot of great resources that are out there. A buddy of mine, Mike Tullian, his last name is like Toil and Lion put together. That's how he told me how to spell it, because otherwise you can't. He's done a couple of really great videos about a bunch of different teams that do astrobiology research. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Stars Are Calling, because the stars are calling and we must go. And if you just Google like my name and astrobiology, usually a couple of things will pop up of some of the work that we're doing. I really love what I do, and I remind everyone, stay curious. Don't take no for an answer. If someone inspires you to do something or you're inspired to do something, just go out and get it.
Thank you, Morgan. That was great. Great way to end it. We, as always, we're Science the Show. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Science the Show. Email us at sciencetheshow@gmail.com if you want to say hi. And we do this pretty much for free. Some people donated on the Eventbrite to get in here. Not everybody did. If you guys like the show, we know that there are so many worthwhile causes in the world right now. More of them pop up.
And they're not more important than this one, I like to interject. And so to not donate and participate is criminal, actually.
If you want to donate to us and not be a criminal, look at the bottom of the stream. Dylan, where exactly is it?
It should be. They've switched around Twitch a bit, but there should be like a little about tab, and you click on that. That'll have information about the show, and there's a lovely donate button you can click on. We also have a Venmo on the actual picture of the stream itself. Anything count. 50 cents, $1, $5, $3,000, and I'll do something. I don't want to say what, but This is rad. This is fucking sick. Anyone who this is completely unrelated. Anyone who wants to complain about me checking my phone, you jackasses text me during the show, and then I check, and then more people text me during the show. Anyways, that's completely unrelated.
Before the Dylan Grievance Hour, how about you? Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.